In this video, I would like to talk to you about the 21 Principles of the Dokido by Miyamoto Musashi. Now, Miyamoto Musashi was a samurai in feudal Japan who um, was a Ronin. I believe he went 69-0 in one-on-one combat. But he also wrote a book called the Book of the Five Rings. And this is a book about strategy and philosophy. And before he died, he also wrote the 21 Principles of Dokido and basically the 21 Principles of Life. And in November 18th, 2023, I wrote them all down in this notebook, and I just came across it, and I would like to elaborate on each principle and bring them to your attention because it is full of timeless wisdom. But I just want to give you a backdrop of who Miyamoto Musashi was if you didn't know. And let's get into it. First, accept everything just the way it is. Now, I think about this as I like to say, want what happens to happen. There's no greater harmony than in one's capacity to want what happens to happen. Because if you can want what happens to happen, you're truly free. Because everything you want is happening, and nothing you don't want is happening. So he says here, basically, accepting everything just the way it is. I believe that's along the same lines as one of the most vital lessons I try to remind myself on a daily basis. Number two, do not seek pleasure for its own sake. Again, my way of saying this is never give in to pleasure for pleasure's sake. Nothing good has ever come of giving in to pleasure for the sake of pleasure. Pleasure is not evil inherently, but when you sacrifice virtue for it, when you give into it just for the sake of its pleasure, it's dangerous. Number three, do not under any circumstances depend on a partial feeling. Now, as you can see, I'm going to elaborate on these in the ways that I like to remind myself, because these are things I've come to the conclusion to on my own or through other means that I have different ways of saying, and this is no different. Never make a permanent decision based on a partial feeling. We make permanent decisions all the time on feelings that come and go like the wind. Is there one second, gone the next. But the decision you made in that second is permanent. It cannot be taken back. Whether it's something you said, something you did, it cannot be taken back. And now you have to deal with the consequences. Even though the feeling's gone, you're left to deal with the consequences. Number four, think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. We're just this small little macro in this huge, or with a small little micro in this huge macro organism. And when you think too deeply about yourself, you get too grandiose about yourself and you think you're more important than you are. But in reality, the community, the world is what matters, the universe. 5, be detached from desire lifelong. Now, this is a rule that is more fitting of a god than a man, because it's impossible to be detached from desires always. But it's good to detach from things of that nature, to see them from the outside. Say, I want this. Say I want this piece of food so bad. Detach from that. Come out of yourself and say, why? What is that going to give me other than, hurt stomach later, regret from eating it, so on and so forth, a headache. And you can detach from that and say, this desire is not worth fulfilling. And some desires will be, but if you can detach, you can view objectively, and you can as much as you can, get rid of your bias. To see if that's actually a good beneficial action or if it's just a action not worth indulging. Number 6, do not regret what you have done. We should never regret the things that we have done because they have made you who you are today. And if you're happy with who you are today, then you have to be happy with everything that happened. Now, this is a slippery slope because we need to regret to change, but at the same time, you can accept what has happened and realize that if I didn't, there was no way I could learn that lesson the easy way. You can only learn lessons the hard way. So you had to go through that. You had to have these deep regrets and these horrible actions to realize how wrong and misguided you were, to make deep changes to become the person you are today. I thought about this today on my morning walk. I regret a lot of things I've done. A lot. I've regret a lot of ways that I've treated people, actions that I've done, habits that I've partaken in for way too long. But in the sense of them being in service to the person I am today, I do not regret them. I regret the people I hurt and I regret the things that I've done, but I'm glad that's made me who I am today. Number 7, never be jealous. Envy is truly the killer of happiness. You cannot be happy if you are jealous. If you say, he has a better life than me, I am jealous of him, I want to be like that. How do you expect to be happy in your own skin? You can't. Number 8, never let yourself be saddened by separation. This is a hard one. And I think this is another rule that is more divine than human. But I think it goes back to the first rule, kind of, accept everything just the way it is. Want what happens to happen. No greater harmony. Because how often is it that we get exactly what we need, not what we want? So often that is the case. So when you're saddened by a separation, I think just reminding yourself that this potentially could be happening for the very best of reasons can save you from a lot of turmoil. Number 9, resentment and complaint are appropriate neither for oneself nor others. Resenting others, complaining, they're not appropriate for you, and they're not appropriate for others either. Marcus Aurelius says, never be overheard complaining, not even to yourself. Complaining is having a problem with reality, and having a problem with reality is, why not take steps to change? Because you're not going to change reality. Reality is reality. If you try to change what is reality, then you are living in a fantasy world. Wanting people to conform to your will is not reality. And you can't, he says, for oneself nor others. It's not appropriate for others either, but it's hard to, really bring this up to people. It's true, but I'd say rather focus on yourself than others, unless they are affecting the common good. If they are hurting others, then, step in, but you can only do so much. Number 10, do not let yourself be guided by the feeling of lust or love. This is another divine, godly rule for a human being to try to follow, especially love, and lust for that matter. But yeah, I don't got much for that one. It's above my pay grade. Number 11, in all things, have no preferences. I think this can help, like be indifferent, stoicism, be indifferent. But I do believe there are preferable indifferences, better to be healthy than sick. Better to be rich than poor. Better to be tall than short. Sorry if you're short. Nothing wrong with that. Um, but having no preferences can truly bring peace. I think that's a given. Be indifferent to where you live. Another very stoic premise of, we are citizens of the universe. Whether you live in Maine or you live in California, the laws of the universe are the same. The laws of gravity are the same. Newton's laws still hold. Theory of relativity is still there. The divine forces that are or are not intervening are still there. So being indifferent to where you live because you are a citizen of the universe. You're not a citizen of this town or that state or this country or that continent. We're all citizens of the world, of the universe. Do not pursue the taste of good food. Cicero once said, absence is easier than moderation. And how true that is. And for me, absence of good food is easier than moderation. Taste good tasting food. I'm a overeater for sure, and that's why I need to have a strict diet of low calorie dense foods. Um, but that's just a fault of my own. So if you can pursue the taste of good food and be disciplined, more power to you. But I personally am not there, so I can't give much advice on that. Do not hold on to possessions you no longer need. Don't be a hoarder. If you've done your time, say you have a bunch of clothes you no longer wear, give them away. Let someone else use them. They will be in better service to someone else than to yourself. So give them up. Let another get use out of them than let them collecting dust in your closet. And I also, I read this thing recently that was talking about how, um, sorry, I was talking about how we value the things we have higher than if we didn't have them. So say you have a shirt that's really worth $10. If you own it, you're like, oh, that's like $20. But that's why you have to ask yourself, how much would I spend on this if I did not own it? And if you're like, you won't even buy it, so you should probably just give it away. It's no use collecting dust. And it also clutters your brain when you have a huge mess of things. When you're a minimalist and you just don't have a lot of things, your brain can just focus on the important things. Do not act following customary beliefs. Don't be dogmatic. Don't rely on doctrine. All that is relying on the thinking of somebody else. Which, if you're telling me I have one life to live, one chance to do my best, one chance to get it right, I don't really want to rely on someone else's thinking, personally. Now, that may just be me, but I don't think relying on the thinking of past people who have out-to-date information is a reliable source to live a good life. Stress test the things. Stress test doctrine, and if it still stands, follow it. It's also dogmatic to not follow doctrine just because it is doctrine. Don't forget that. Do not collect weapons or practice with weapons beyond what is useful. Now this goes back to what I said. He was a samurai, he was a ronin, so this is a rule for samurais and ronins. So, but I think we can use the point of do not collect things beyond what is useful. You can just get rid of the weapons and practice, and don't collect and practice with things that are beyond what is useful. Do not fear death. To live a life governed by the fear of death is to not live at all. Do not seek to possess either good or fifths for your old age. Live now. Old age is never guaranteed. You know, I mean, I'm all for, S&P 500 and Roth IRAs and so on and so forth, but this notion that we're going to save the best time of our life for the time when we are in worse health, worse condition, worse everything, is ridiculous to me. Yes, be smart. Yes, save. Yes, don't waste your money, but what's the point of being the richest man in the cemetery? Respect Buddha and the gods without counting on their help. Hmm. You may abandon your own body, but you must preserve your honor. That's very samurai-ish of Miyamoto Musashi to say, but your honor does mean a lot. If if you don't care about what other people think, the honor of what you think about yourself, care about that. Number 21, never stray from the way, which is essentially keeping those 20 principles. And if you stray from the way, get back on course ASAP. It's very valuable, I believe, to remember that if you fall or if you get off the path, it's not a failure as long as you get back up and or get back on the path. But if you stray from the way and never get back on the path or never get back up, that is a failure. Never fail till you concede, till you give up. Everything else is a learning lesson. You either win or you learn, said John Maxwell. And yeah, those are the 21 principles of the Dokudo. He has a book on these 21 principles, but I mean, they're right here, so